Hello everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw and happy Halloween. It's Monday, and on Mondays we do tier lists, and on Wednesdays we get ready for a rough rescue.
Oh no, look out! Now that was just plain silly.
Today we are going to be breaking down every Pokemon inside Pokemon Unite with the new release of Zoroark. We have our tiers for today. Our God tier, today it's our dog tier. We only have one dog in our dog tier. We're not frickin' Paw Patrol around here. We've got our S tier, our spooky tier. We have our A+ tier, our A+ nightmare to fight tier. We have our A tier, the always scary tier. B+. Got the B+ tier and the B tier. That's gonna haunt me, but we've still got the B tier. We've got our C tier, the chase is on the case tier, and our D tier, our Decidueye Memorial tier. In this tier list, I'm gonna rank every single Pokemon based on how I feel like they generally fit into the overall game. This isn't for the highest 1% or 0.5% of players out there, and this also isn't necessarily for people just picking up the game for the first time, but this is generally what I would say most all players in the game are going to experience at some point outside of, again, highly competitive 5-stacks or just inside the beginner tier. So let's get started. Our most recent Pokemon is a Speedster, so we're gonna go ahead and do our Speedsters last. Let's start with our attackers. We rarely start with our attackers. Cinderace. I think Cinderace is very decent. It's either a B+ or an A tier Pokemon. Cinderace is sort of the stereotypical AD carry inside the game. That's attack damage carry. You're pressing your A button or you're tapping your attack button on mobile. You're doing a lot of damage here. I do feel like it's actually gotten a little value now that Rayquaza is a little easier to KO. I think Cinderace can actually chip it down fast enough to kind of make a difference there. It's between A and B+ for me, but that feels like that means to me it's more of a B+ Pokemon. Not bad in any respect. In fact, I feel like the game is constantly narrowing things, and this patch especially, things are getting more and more narrow, which is good. That's where you want balance for a game like this. I think B+ is a fair place to play this Pokemon. You kind of have to play it in the central area or the jungle. It's a very crowded role, and I think Cinderace does pretty good, but there are Pokemon that kind of outshine it a little bit here. Next attacker, Cram. I think Cram is fine, but not that impressive right now. I would say B is fair. It's not that it's terrible. I just think they kept nerfing it. They like finally made it good. Then they kept nerfing it. They kept nerfing its viability. You can carry decently on Cram. I think both of its builds are okay. Probably Dive is the stronger build right now, but it just doesn't provide that much value, it feels like, as the game goes on. I love me some Cramorant, and again, I don't think it's terrible, but I just think it's kind of a middle-of-the-road choice for an attacker. Alolan Ninetales, I think, is in one of the tougher positions in the game right now. It just needs a little love. It's one of the Pokemon that I'm actually surprised didn't get much of a change with the recent balance patch. I think they touched a lot of Pokemon that needed help. Just unfortunately, Alolan Ninetales did need a little love, and it did not get it. Both of its builds are okay. It has very bad mobility. It has pretty good burst with its Unite move, and it actually has a decent win rate right now on its Dazzling Gleam build, but I just think A9 is not in the best spot in the game right now. Venusaur. I think Venusaur is rocketing up to the S tier this week. Venusaur got massive buffs, and it shows. You probably see them in every single game, doing insane amounts of damage. It finally has the survivability it needs for its Giga Drain Petal Dance kit. It was just getting bursted down too fast, and now I honestly think Venusaur is an absolute force to be reckoned with inside this meta. You don't need to play it in the central area, but you surely could. Let's see, Greninja. Greninja, I think, is right in line with Cinderace for me. At some points, I kind of think Cinderace is a little better. I don't think Greninja's change to its Water Shuriken double team was enough to make that move sort of the better choice over Surf. I just think the fact of the matter is, inside Pokemon Unite, so many things come down to being able to get a burst of damage for a last hit or a KO, stealing a wild Pokemon or objective, and Cinderace just has that with Surf. It doesn't with Water Shuriken. So even though they buffed this other moveset, and I think it's fine, I still think Greninja kind of hangs out right around with Cinderace here in the B+ tier. Another attacker, Pikachu. Pikachu, I also think, suffers from what's going on with Ninetales a little bit. Here's the thing. Both of these Pokemon have value and can do cool things inside of a game. I just think the idea of a tier list is you're kind of comparing them to the overall game, and would you want them on your team compared to so many other choices. And unfortunately with both of them, I just feel like they're both really lacking right now. They just need a little something to kind of bring them online and make them a little bit better. Gardevoir is in the exact same boat. I think Gardevoir might even be the worst of the three, honestly. I don't know. Gardevoir is just... in my opinion, Gardevoir is really not good in this current meta. Maybe things are too bursty. Maybe things just jump on it too much. It's rough early in path. Its experience is just... it needs to get level 5, and sometimes it doesn't get that if it's in lane, so you throw in the jungle, but man, you don't want to put that in the jungle compared to so many other Pokemon. It honestly is teetering into the D tier for me. It's one of the least whelming Pokemon in the game. I would say it's even underwhelming. All right, I'm all fired up. Let's see. Sylveon. Sylveon is B+. I think B+ is fair for Sylveon. Not amazing, not terrible, solid in path, does pretty good early, falls off a little late, but can still be a bit of a menace. I like Sylveon. Don't love it, but I like it. I like it a lot. I think it used to be kind of crazy, and maybe on coordinated teams it can do a little bit more. The nice thing about a Pokemon like Sylveon, as opposed to Cinderace, Greninja, Gardevoir, is it doesn't need the central area to do good, and that's a huge benefit for it. It gets good at level 4, and it's pretty dang useful. I think B+ is a fair place for Sylveon right here. Same thing with Decidueye. Decidueye is either B+ or even B. The big problem with Decidueye is it can just get dove on so hard, and it has very little mobility. Yeah, I like it. I love playing it. In fact, it's one of my favorite sort of, you know, if you're, you know that feeling when you're a little tilted and you just go, all right, just give me a kind of a fun comfort pick. For me, that's Decidueye Spirit Shackle. I love it. I think it's so fun. That being said, Razor Leaf, I think is just bad. Honestly, I think it's just a bad moveset, and if you pick it, you're asking to lose a little bit. Not for every point of the game, but for the end of the game especially, it's really rough. Duraludon. Duraludon, I think, is A. I think A is probably pretty fair. It reminds me of Cinderace and Greninja, but it's just better at securing objectives, better at picking out some sneaky KOs and stuff like that. Its basic attacks are just even better than the other two a lot of the time. And the movement and knockup you get from Dragon Tail is actually... I think it's a lot bigger than people think, because not only can you move yourself around, but you can also kind of stun an enemy and push them back. It's really big, especially if like something like Zoroark's coming in to get you. It's a pretty solid choice for something like that. Espeon. Espeon, I would say for me, is B+ as well. I like Espeon. I don't know if its moveset that was kind of weird and buggy, which was sort of anything comboing with Future Sight. It felt like it was a little buggy. I don't know if that's been fixed or not. I would have to look into that. That being said, I think they've finally made this Pokemon strong enough to at least be useful. I would much rather have Espeon on my team over Pikachu, Gardevoir, Ninetales, and they kind of fill a similar role right there. I like Espeon. I don't love it, but I like it. Oh, Delphox. Delphox is A+ for me. It's almost S. I might even put it S. The thing about Delphox is I feel like to make it an S tier Pokemon, it has to get the central area. It feels amazing, but not completely broken. It's like right on the borderline of it, and I think that A+ is a fair place to put a Pokemon like that. I think Delphox is so good, especially if you give it the central area. I love it. Mystical Fire and Flame Charge is probably the way to go on this. Just the resets are absolutely insane with this Pokemon. Glaceon, I would say Glaceon was S for a while. I'm going to keep it A+. It's kind of fallen out of favor, but it really didn't get nerfed that hard, and if you play against a good one, it's still just deleting everything. So I think it was maybe a little overhyped at S for a little while, but in general, it's just so incredibly brutal with the Icy Wind build, and they really have done nothing to stop it. So for the time being, I would say that it is definitely still an A+ level Pokemon. Mew, I don't think enough changed with Mew to take it out of the S tier for me, but I do think they toned it down a bit to the point where it doesn't feel like the most oppressive thing in the game. But I still think what it can do is so unbelievable. It's boosted, it's level 1 solar beams, it's everything it can do is still unbelievable, even though they did tone back a lot of stuff, which I think was very, very necessary. I love that they are taking time to nerf this Pokemon and try to get it in line without making it completely useless. That being said, I still think it's kind of crazy. Any attackers I'm missing here? I don't think so. And if there are, I can just pop back to them. It's kind of hard. The roster's getting big, everybody. Let's head on over to some of our all-rounders. Let's start with Machamp. For me, Machamp, this is the most underwhelming I've ever had Machamp. I feel like Machamp is kind of the... I don't know. It just... I don't love it at all right now. And I'm not saying it's bad, but Machamp and Cram, it's interesting how my B tier is shaking out right now. Because Machamp and Cram are both Pokemon that I think are good. And it's not that you're throwing the game or anything if you're picking them, but I'm just really not impressed with their overall performance as of late. And yeah, I'm just underwhelmed with them on this map. I don't know what it is exactly, but I'm not in love with either of these Pokemon. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's just, I feel like there are a lot of other all-rounders that are doing a little bit better than Machamp right now, and I don't really know what that is. Maybe I just need to spend more time with this. Maybe this is closer to B+, and I'm being a little unfair, but I think Machamp just doesn't impress me too much right now. Garchomp. I hesitate to bring Garchomp above a C tier currently, but it did get some really nice buffs. I'm going to keep it here for the time being, but I feel like this is one that I could be wrong about. People could go, no, actually, it's right up here. I haven't spent enough time with it, but the buffs I've seen felt pretty good, and I see Garchomp's doing much, much better in games. So it's definitely not a bottom tier Pokemon. It might even be hanging out in the B tier with these other folks, but for now, I'm going to keep it C until I can see more of what's going on. Okay, that's not funny. Let's see. Lucario. Lucario, I think, is A. I think Lucario is either A or B+. I don't think they've really hurt this Pokemon too much. I just think it's not as exciting of a choice as when it was completely broken. If you wanted to argue and put it B+, I'm not going to go crazy about it, but I still think Lucario is really, really good. It just doesn't get a lot of play, it feels like, which is interesting. But, you know, people play the things that they see are most broken, and Lucario doesn't feel crazy broken. It just feels really, really good to me. Let's see. Looking for another all-rounder. Char's A+ for me. I think Char's amazing. They've tuned it back a little bit, and they're messing with its Unite move, but I still... The way this map has been playing out, especially lately, I still feel like it's one of the best Pokemon to have throughout most of the game. As soon as you become Charizard, you're just a force to be reckoned with, and especially the later fights, I think Char is just absolutely amazing. You kind of have a Unite move at every single big Reggie fight, and you have a Unite move at the final fight, and it's one of the most devastating in the game. So I think Char is really, really good. However, if you can find a way to shut down Char and get it to cancel its Unite, I mean, you plummet its viability here. Let's see, and that's the sound when viability plummets. Another all-rounder. Zarina, I think, is also A+. Very, very good. I don't feel like the nerfs have hurt it that much. I think it's an amazing Pokemon still. The combos on it are absolutely insane. I think it's great. I think it's really great. Yeah. Zarina's great. Even both builds seem to be working pretty good. Dragonite, I'm not impressed with Dragonite right now. I'm going to put Dragonite down in C. Maybe B. I mean, it's like, it's close here, honestly. I'm just so unimpressed with this Pokemon. Yes, it can secure things with a Hyper Beam, but it doesn't fight that well. And when you don't fight that well around this Rayquaza fight, I just feel like you're in a lot of trouble. If you're Dragonite and the enemy team has a Zarina around Rayquaza, you would always rather have that Zarina, I would say. Unless you're just going for a full-on flip. Considering it can full-on flip and secure things with a Hyper Beam, I'm still gonna put it B for now, but you're on thin ice, buddy. Okay? I'm not impressed with you right now. You got a lot to prove. Aegislash is either A or A+. I don't know if they've even heard it enough to bring it down from A+. Aegislash is really good. I think because of its outplay potential, I think I'm gonna... this is so close between these two. And I mean, I know, A or A+. Like, all I'm saying is this Pokemon's really, really good. I'm just not sure how much they've heard it. I'm going to keep it A for the time being. I'm going to say that maybe the nerfs they've given it, because I do feel like, I feel it in the early game. I feel like maybe the nerfs they gave it hurt it a bit, although I still think Aegislash is awesome. And its outplay potential with the ability to just go between Sword and Shield form, it's just so good. It's such a good Pokemon. Let's see. Azu. I'm gonna put Azu A+. I'm gonna put Azumarill A+. I think it's really great. Its level 4 is insane. It has a Unite move all the time. The fact that I swear, just bringing its evolution down 1 level was almost enough. But literally, if you look at Azumarill's path to getting here, it started here. Down in like the C or D tier, like, hi, I'm Azumarill. And it literally like buffed every single patch they were trying to fix this Pokemon. And finally, I think they've got it to a point where it's just great. It's really great. I think Azumarill is in such a great spot in the game right now. Buzzwole is a weird one. I'm going to put it B+. I think B plus. I know it's a mosquito. Come on. I think this Pokemon is... If you're playing Superpower on it, I actually think it's really solid. I think everything else is still kind of like, I think anything like Leech Life is still just kind of cheese, unfortunately. It's fun, it's strong, but it's pretty dang cheesy. However, the resets on Superpower, I think you can actually become a super formidable Pokemon. I think this B+ tier, to me, is shaping up as a tier of Pokemon that I like, but I do think get a little outclassed by some other counterparts. However, I think they play pretty well. Tyranitar. Tyranitar is either A or A+. This might be the first time that I bring it up to A+ tier. So here are my thoughts. A+, I think, is... Okay. Since Rayquaza is now more similar to Zapdos, and that fight really turns into if you can wipe the enemy team really quick, you can kind of win the game. I feel like this Pokemon being one of the best late game Pokemon hands down, it just puts it in such a position to win games. And especially if you put a strong support with it, I just think it's so hard to deal with. Tyranitar is so hard to deal with, especially late. So I'm going to put it A+. The thing that knocks it down is its early game, which is tragic. But, you know, a lot is decided near the end of the game in Pokemon Unite. A lot is decided around those big fights. So that's where I'm going to put it. Scissor Scyther. We don't have them split up on this particular tier list, which is okay. I'm going to put it A tier. I actually think it's really solid. I think I've been putting it B+, but I'm going to put this one A tier. I think it's really good. I think Scissor especially is just getting really good at brawling, and it's turning into... It's the kind of all-rounder where you go, well, I'd rather have it than Machamp, which is wild to think about, but it's just... It brawls so freaking well. I might even be underselling it, but... Yeah, it just stays alive forever with Bullet Punch. I think it's really impressive in the meta right now, and they fixed it, which is really cool because it was struggling and they actually fixed it. Let's head on over to let's do supporters next. So Wigglytuff. I think Wigglytuff's B+, maybe B. It's fine. Not bad. It had its moment where it was kind of bad, and now I think it's kind of back to being all right. The thing about defenders and supporters, I'm kind of not... You can't really say, is Wigglytuff as good as Mew? I mean, you can. We're talking about all the Pokemon ranked here, but I'm kind of ranking them against each other as well. I think as a tank, it's useful, not bad. B tier, I think, is a reasonable place to put a Pokemon like this. Mime, I don't think they heard it enough. I think it's still crazy. I think Mime is still crazy. Damage, healing, tankiness, Unite move, still insane. That being said, they keep tuning it down, which is exactly what they need to do. I want them to continue to tune down Mew and Mime and bring them, you know, even lower, like back down to an A+. You want every Pokemon to be really good. You just don't want them to be so good that they feel like they're your only choice. And I kind of feel like that happens a little bit with Mew and Mime. And I don't think they've fixed Mime here. Okay. Eldegoss. Eldegoss is weird. And I'm gonna... this might be too high to start with, but they really buffed this Pokemon. It's either B+ or A. It's either B+ or A. It's... A feels like I'm giving it too much hype because it just got buffed, but it's so much better. And then B+ feels like I'm underselling it a little bit. So I think I'll be, you know what? I'm going to put it B+. I'm going to put it B+. I still think that's a really solid place for it, and it probably could raise higher. Again, a lot of this stuff just got buffed a few days ago, so I don't think it's easy to say unless you see something that's like obviously broken. I don't think it's easy to say exactly how insane it is, but I think it's so much better. The question is, what do you replace on your team for it? But Honestly, if you were to say I'd rather have Eldegoss than Espeon or Sylveon or something like that, I'd be like, well, I could kind of see that. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. So I think it's in a much better spot than it was, for sure. It needed the buffs and it got it. Blissey, solid, B+, I would say. B+ or A. It's still a great healer. It just feels like, for whatever reason, the healers aren't as amazing right now. Maybe they're just not healing enough. It feels like they're good, but not the greatest thing in the world. I'd put Clefable right here as well. I think Clefable and Blissey, they're either A or B+. Really good. When you compare them to everything else, I feel like, you know, supporters are always in a weird spot. They're both really solid Pokemon and useful on a team. They're either B+ or A. You want a supporter, but you also can win without one, which is kind of odd. I don't know. Both good. Compared to LD, they don't even fill the same role, it feels like. So it's kind of weird. And now, I mean, Hoopa as well. Honestly, I feel like all the supporters are in a kind of pretty good place right now. I'm going to put it B+. I think they might have fixed it. Maybe B. Maybe I'll keep it B for now. I'll keep it B. Trick is so much better than it was, and maybe they're kind of finding actually where they want Hoopa to perform inside this meta, so there could be something there. I'm going to keep it B for now, but they really brought it out of the bottom tier, which is really cool. Let's head on over to our defenders here before we get to our final category, our speedsters. Slowbro. I think Slowbro's pretty good. Pretty good. B+. I think it's pretty good. Very tanky. Scald and Surf, both good. You probably are going to run Amnesia, not Telekinesis. Its Unite move shuts down a key Pokemon, especially something like Charizard that has gotten into the air. I can't touch my nose because my nose itches right now. I want to let you at home know that, but I can't touch it. I think pretty solid, B+. Krusty Boy, I'm going to put it B, but I think we might be on the verge of Rock Tomb Crustle being a real legitimate defender thing, like legit defender thing. And I don't think we're ready for that. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with it. Rock Tomb is really good right now. Like, really good. It's really good. That being said, every Crustle on your team is going to throw the game. They just do. Snorlax, A. I think Snorlax is probably the best defender. In that pure defendery sort of role, I think Snorlax probably fills that better than any other Pokemon. And because of that, I think it's an A. If you're a good Snorlax, man, you can really mess up the enemy team, especially some of their carry Pokemon. Blastoise is B for me. I want Blastoise to be doing better. I'm just not that impressed with it in the meta. But that being said, everything in the B tier is playable and decent. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not that in love with it yet. It needs something. I don't know what to do with this. It feels like it just takes so long to get good with Blastoise. Mammo, I'm going to put it up in the A tier. I think Mammo's early game is just so much stronger than Blastoise. It doesn't feel like it falls off late the way it used to. Its Unite move is better now because everyone's Unite moves are worse. I think the build for this is Icicle Crash, high horsepower. I just think it's so good. You can steal objectives with Icicle Crash. You can steal KOs. You can put enemies in really bad positions, and you're just a tanky monster, and you do a ton of damage. I think it's a really good defender. Greedent, I'm going to put A+. Coordinated, this might not be the case, but in every other setting, coordinated meaning like full-on 5v5s, but in every other setting, this Pokemon is just, like literally this tier that says a nightmare to fight. Greedent is a nightmare to fight. It's always at least good. It's always at least good, and it's just so tanky and so annoying and so fast and so, yeah, Greedent's just Greedent, man. It's great. Greedent's great. Trevenant, I like Trev a lot. I think B+, maybe. Either B or B+. Trevenant's really good. I always waffle between these few tiers with Trev. I think it's really strong. Sometimes pushing enemies around is a mistake, and sometimes it's amazing. I do think Woodhammer is so much better now, but I don't know if it's the build. I like it a lot, though. Honestly, I was playing it the other day. I like it a lot. I just don't know if it's the build. So they buffed its lesser used moveset, but I don't know if it's enough to bring it up. All right, let's get into our speedsters here, our final category where Zoroark resides. Let's see. Gengar, I'm going to bring it down to A+, but I still think it's an absolute monster inside the game. It got some pretty good nerfs, especially to its Hex build. I think the range nerf is actually pretty annoying. It has reduced damage. It's still amazing. It's A+, but it's not S for me right now. And I think that's so positive to put Gengar just one tier lower. I think that's great. Absol, I think, is A. A or B+. It's good. It's really good. It does a lot of damage. Maybe it's B+. I might put Absol B+. Maybe this Pokemon hangs out kind of in this area right here. You know, I like it. It's good. I'm going to put it there. Talon, I'm going to put A. Talon, I think, is actually great in this meta. No one plays it well, but I do think Talon is really great in this meta. Fly, not really Brave Bird, although I did play a Brave Bird game the other day and it was pretty solid. But I think Talon is really strong. It's gotten worse because of Dodrio, and it's also gotten worse because of the Ray fight. I think the Ray fight, losing some health, has made back capping a little worse and stuff like that. So I think Talon's, you know, really good, but maybe not S tier. Dodrio, I'm gonna put A+. It's hard to put this Pokemon S, even though I think it's in some ways one of the most useful Pokemon in the game. They did nerf its better moveset here, so they nerfed Tri-Attack a little bit, but they buffed Jump Kick and Drill Peck. And I don't know, you could do some crazy stuff with this. I still think it's amazing. A+. I mean, these are all super solid Pokemon. Zoroark, I'm going to put Zoroark in the C tier. That's probably too low for some, but it's just, please fix its leveling. I mean, I don't get it at this point. Just change it. Just change it. Just change its leveling by 1 level, and then all of a sudden, I swear this is an A tier Pokemon. But it just takes too long to get online, and I don't even understand it. Now Zoroark. So I'm going to set Zoroark in the dog tier while I talk about it. It is not my dog tier Pokemon for this Halloween tier list. So, okay. Here's what I'm going to say about Zoroark. I don't have enough time on it to make, you know, a perfect assessment of this, but I know what I'm feeling when I play this Pokemon. I have seen some people say that this Pokemon is broken S tier craziness. So take that for what you will. Perhaps they are correct about this Pokemon being incredibly broken and crazy. What I've noticed when I play Zoroark, or when I see a Zoroark, or when I see some of the better players on Zoroark, is most of the game it's really dominant. But the last little bit of the game, I don't feel like it's that dominant. I feel like once everyone has some levels, once they're ready to get into this final fight, it kind of becomes a little bit of a liability that it never was throughout the rest of the game. And unfortunately, like let's talk about a Pokemon like Tyranitar. I feel like Tyranitar and Zoroark are on completely different trajectories. I don't even know how you would do this on a craft, but I mean, imagine like Tyranitar starts the game here, Zoroark starts the game here, and then as the game progresses, Zoroark stays here for a long time, but then Tyranitar starts to pass it, and Zoroark starts to dip down, and it's because it's very squishy, it really relies on one big combo, and if the enemy team is positioned together, and they have some form of crowd control, even with a full heal or something like that, I just feel like Zoroark doesn't perform as well. It's weird because through 99 or 90, 80, I guess, 80% of the game, I mean, literally, we can look at it, it's like a 10-minute game. 80% of the game, or 75% of the game, it's amazing. And then the last bit, I just feel like it's not that amazing. It really isn't. It's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad. Don't get me wrong. But I'm saying I feel a drop-off in this Pokemon in the late game, even when I'm level 15, heading into some of these moments, because it's just a single mistake or a single just being focused or something like that takes you out. It doesn't mean it's bad, but I am putting this Pokemon in my A tier. I don't know. I could be wrong. It could be A+. I could be very wrong, and it could be S. Here's what I don't think. I don't think this Pokemon is B or C. I don't think that. I think it's somewhere between B+ and A+. That's what it feels like to me. Somewhere in this range. Maybe it brings it up to the S tier, because I've seen a lot of great players said that they think it's that strong. And I'm happy to be wrong about this one. But I'm not that impressed with it as the match goes on. So that's where I'm going to put Zoroark here. And now it's time. A few things. We don't have anyone in our Decidueye Memorial tier. I think the closest for me is maybe Gardevoir. Maybe Ninetales, something like that. But they're not playable. So I'm not going to put anything in the Decidueye Memorial tier unless I think it's just not playable. like Razor Leaf Decidueye. And now we get to pick our God tier Pokemon or our dog tier Pokemon of the week. We only have one dog around here. We're not frickin' Norse Paw Patrol. And for me, it's Venusaur. It's Venusaur for sure. I'm not saying it's the best Pokemon in the game by putting it up in the dog tier, but without question, no Pokemon has risen like this. It is crushing it right now. It's just so freaking good. Is it better than Mew and Mime? I don't know. That's not exactly what I'm trying to say, but I'm just trying to highlight how freaking good Venu is right now. And honestly, you know, a team built around having like a Venusaur, it's just so difficult to deal with now. It's just such a monster in some of these fights. I think Venusaur is absolutely incredible. And now there's the spooky part of our tier list where we do spooky things like move things around. What is a believable S tier? So that's like what I was saying. When you do that to Eldegoss, all of a sudden you've changed it from being a healer to a healer, damage dealer, shielder, support, attack. Like everything they've done to Eldegoss has made it insane. Of course, Greninja now, the Water Shuriken build is crazy. Like S tier, insane, unbelievable. And of course, as we were mentioning earlier, Glaceon falling off super hard. Mime, those nerfs are hurting it. It's not destroying it, but it's definitely back down in the B tier for now. Zoroark, good A tier Pokemon. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Happy Halloween, everybody.